Yeah, welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. Now, last Wednesday's announcement of the RGR Gleaner Sports Foundation National Sportsman and Sportswoman of the Year nominees once again sparked debate about whether the selection criteria needs to be adjusted to help reduce the dominance of track and field at the awards. Now, before we proceed, let's have a look at said criteria. The following general criteria will be applied in determining the eligibility of persons being nominated in the categories of Sportsman and Sportswoman of the Year. The nominee must be a Jamaica national or have represented Jamaica in an internationally recognized sporting competition. Level 1, distinguished achievement or honor earned at the level of the Olympic Games or at the level of any recognized world championships, which can be a comparison to the Olympic Games or to competitors who have achieved a record world standard in their sport or event during the review period. Level 2, distinguished achievement or honor earned at the Commonwealth or Pan American level in their sport during the review period. Level 3, distinguished achievement or honor earned at the Central American and Caribbean level in their sport during the review period. And Level 4, distinguished achievement or honor earned at the local level in their sport during the review period. Now, Gary Allen is the chairman of the RGR Gleaner Sports Foundation, and he joins us. Mr. Allen, good afternoon and welcome to the SportsMax Zone. I have to say, Mr. Allen, he is my former boss. How are you doing today, sir?
Afternoon, I'm well, thanks.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. First of all, I want to give you the opportunity because I'm sure by now you would have heard a lot of the issues that individuals are saying they have with the selection criteria. And I just want to give you the opportunity first up to address some of those, or at least generally what the issues are that you've heard to this point.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. To be honest with you, what I have heard is quite a bit of discussion which says that the criteria need to be revised, need to be modernized, need to take into account today's reality. I haven't heard specifically what that means. If you look at the criteria you just read out, I'm not sure. I'm not saying that they're not going to be reviewed. In fact, they're up for review again next year. But I'm not sure, are we saying that we are going to review the criteria to say that performances at the level of the Olympics or a World Championships should not be level 1, that it should not be followed by performances at a hemispheric event such as the Commonwealth Games or the Pan American Games, that shouldn't be level 2, that level 3 should not be at the regional level, and then level 4 should not be at the national level. I'm not hearing what is the difficulty with that ranking. I am surmising from some of the arguments that I've heard that there is a case being made that we now have leagues being played and leagues are not reflected anywhere in this ranking. And the debate then has to be, and the matter has to be settled around, where would you put a league? And would you put a league somewhere that is different from an international league, a hemispheric league, a regional league, or a national league? I'm not sure what the discussion is. And bear in mind that when we look at the criteria, these are the same criteria that have delivered 10 sportsmen for boxing, that have delivered 3 sportsmen for cycling, that have delivered 11 cricketers as sportsmen, a footballer as a sportsman, 2 in swimming, 1 in table tennis for Sportsman of the Year, and has delivered 5 times a swimming person as Sportswoman of the Year, 3 times someone as Sportswoman in the field of table tennis. These are the same criteria that have delivered those. So I respect the comments and I am always up for a good debate, but I'm not quite sure what the flaw is that has been identified with the criteria.
Yeah, all right. Let's talk about the nominees for 2024 then. Of course, one of the main concerns is that you have Khadija Bonishaw, for example, who has been nominated for a Ballon d'Or. You have players playing in the top netball league in Australia, the Suncorp League, who have been named MVP of finals, who have been named tournament MVPs, yet still they can't even get a nomination. Now, from what I surmise, I don't suspect that the well-thinking individuals are saying those winning the awards that it is unfair, but I think a lot of people are finding it difficult to reconcile having sportswomen like Khadija Bonishaw, like Romelda Aiken-George, like Janelle Fowler doing brilliantly on a, I use global level loosely here, but in their in top leagues in their sport, and are being recognized internationally, but can't even get a nomination for the Sportswoman of the Year in Jamaica. How do you reconcile that?
Right. So, fortunately for me, that is not one of the tasks that I have. The selection committee has the task of applying the criteria. The criteria that I just discussed with you, they are the ones that they have, and then they look at the performances, they do the auditing of the activities, and they apply them from there. So I can't speak for the selection committee in that regard, which is why I confine my comments to what it is that would be set out and provided to them to use to consider. And if when they considered what we have, then they have come to these, then I can't go now into the selection committee role because I'm not one of the selectors. And the selectors are not all from the foundation board. There are selectors who are not from the foundation board. But let's also bear in mind that we do have this type of discourse around many of the other things. Many of the awards that you have mentioned also have their controversies around them, also have their debates around them. I was surprised to see the number of times that they have changed the criteria for the Ballon d'Or, responding to different people and criticisms that have come up. One of the criticisms now is that it favors strikers and forwards, and that excellent goalkeepers and excellent midfielders, and I think a midfielder was awarded this year, but defenders and so on do not get the same as someone who is a striker. There was a point in time when it was chosen by journalists, then it was open to voting, then they have gone back to journalists only. So these things have had criticisms raised, and there have been changes done. I mean, in Trinidad and Tobago, where they have similar awards to ours, they actually have different tiers where they have a youth sportsman and a senior sportsman and sportswoman of the year. And one of the things that we are considering for review in our next criteria review next year, the inclusion of a team award. I'm saying all of that to say that when I take the league from Australia, I don't know where that league would fit. What league, where would that fall within the criteria? Where would the CPL fall? Where would the Indian Premier League fall? Where would the Pakistan Premier League fall? Where are all the leagues similar? Can we establish equity between a league in football and a league in cricket? For those that do not have rankings of athletes, how do you treat with them outside of the strict groups that we have established, which are the only ones that can give you something that is equitable? So yes, I agree. I'd love to watch Khadija play. She's an excellent footballer, outstanding, happy because it's a Jamaican who is doing so well. But when it comes to the determination, of her nomination and they are applying the criteria as they are, I don't think it's the first time that we are seeing a situation where people have felt that footballers have done well. Footballers have done well in the English Premier League, but yet we have had just one footballer who has been at the position of being sportsman. It's a team sport. Some people say, well, how do you award one team member from 11 or one from 7 in the case of netball? Who is recognized when there's a great cross and someone finishes well? Is it the person who scores the goal? What about the person who set it up? All of those come into the question of teams. So one of the things we have said is when we review, we are going to actually look at putting in a team award because there is scope to consider that there's a national team award. And may I also point out that while we look at Sportsman and Sportswoman of the Year, there are many other awards that are given. And they are given, and we have created space for that because of this concentration around sportsman and sportswoman not being able to capture everything. So we have a young, outstanding, upcoming, talented headliner, a youth award. We have an iconic award. We have lifetime achievement award. We have introduced all of those to be able to recognize people. Iconic award has gone to a cricketer, has gone to a netballer, has gone to track and field. Yes, we have had lifetime achievement awards that have gone to netballers and so on. The chairman's award has gone to a range of different people, horse racing, so on and so forth. There are many awards to cover different things. If the criteria cannot be equitably set, so that you don't have another confusion and controversy that the selectors are not being true to the criteria when they choose X person or Y person. The only way you can eliminate that is if you make it objective and as little of the subjectivity as I like, I think, I believe, and that's what they have tried to do.
Yeah, completely understand that point. By the way, while I welcome the possibility of having the team award, I think we ultimately might end up in the same situation where the relay teams in track and field dominate.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's
those
one
awards based on the current criteria.
Correct. And there's one school of thought that when you get to a team award, it cannot be like a relay team. It would have to, and it can't be like a doubles team in tennis if the overall tennis team is who went to the Davis Cup and you are awarding the Davis Cup tennis team for 2025. So you are going to have to define what team means in that regard. It can't be the Jamaican team to the Olympics or the Jamaican team to the Pan American Games, which has sub-teams in it. So there's a lot to discuss about that and to arrive at a position about that because there are controversies around that as well.
Yeah. One more quick one from me though, because you spoke about equity. There are some who would say that not a lot of that exists even with the current criteria because track and field athletes are at a significant advantage because they have a global event to compete in 3 times every 4 years. If you compare that with football, once every 4 years, netball, once every 4 years, and you can think of other sports that don't have global opportunities as regularly as track and field athletes do. For example, in track and field 2024, there were 2 global opportunities. The World Indoor Championships.
But that was an exception.
Is it really? Well, it happens in almost every Olympic year where you have a World Indoor.
Oh, you mean the indoor? The
yes.
Indoor and the Olympic.
And
yes.
the Olympic Games.
You were talking about the issue we had with COVID, which then threw...
Oh, no, not at all. Just the fact that the track and field athletes have more opportunities or have opportunities more regularly to compete on the global stage or to compete in global championships than the footballers, than the netballers, who are some of our other super sportsmen and women. Is that in and of itself equitable?
Right. So that's something that I would have to look at with the statistics to speak to that. That's not one that I have looked at in that way to speak to that. It's a fair point that I have no difficulty researching that along with the team. I think the point to make, though, is that there are international level activities in all sport, pretty much all sport every year. And it international level. So international level for cricket could be Test cricket. International level for cricket could also be the World Cup in cricket. So you have to look at what the international activities are sport by sport and then come to a point where, and I don't think that one can say that unless all sports have the same number of international activities in the same year, then there is an absence of equity. I don't think that that's what equity means. What equity speaks to there is that you have to compare what was done at the international level, not whether there was an opportunity. We are not talking about the opportunity, we're talking about the performance. Was there a performance in that year which led to that? So boxers very often don't get to fight international fights that can lead to a title until every 2-3 years. Yet we have had the most up to, I think, up to when Nicholas won the last time, it would have been a close shave between Mike McCallum and Usain Bolt for winning, and I think McCallum actually had the edge, winning the most titles as Sportsman of the Year. So they don't always all get the same number of chances, but they actually still do well over a number of years. So I wouldn't think that equity speaks to that, but I take your bigger point, and that's something that I definitely have no difficulty looking at.
Yeah, Gary, you've presented a pretty solid case for the criteria and the system that is used to award top performers for each year. But at the top of your presentation, you did put the question out there, where would you put a league? Where would you put a league, a world-rated league in the scheme of things? And I think that is where we've got to find the answer, because while the current criteria is pretty solid in awarding the best performers for a particular year, there has to be something wrong here with a Bunny Shaw not getting a nomination for Sportswoman of the Year. The Guardian newspaper in England this week ranked her the 4th best women's footballer in the world. She was a Ballon d'Or nominee, and there has to be something questionable about her status as an international world football star and not aligning with at least a nomination for the Jamaica Sportswoman of the Year. Nomination. No one is saying that she has to win.
Yeah.
But I hear your presentation about...
Right. And as I said before, Lance, the criteria are the criteria that are there, which I can speak to as chairman of the foundation. The application of the criteria in terms of the selection committee, if they did not find the avenue to do that, then that is a different discussion. But I have said that from the conversation that has taken place, I think that the crux of the matter now is we did not 25, 30 years ago have as many leagues with as many international players at as high a level as we do now. I think what we had then that could be compared may have been county cricket.
Yeah.
The question is that something that we need to look at now, and where in the criteria could that be fitted without it creating other anomalies? And that's the point I made up front, that's where I think one has to look.
Yeah, and we're out of time, but I just have to get this one in. We're talking about, discussing this criteria, and every time for the past 5 years that I've been on this show, Gary, every time the list comes out, we're having a discussion, right? When do you plan to have that meeting to just talk about the criteria and maybe make a couple tweaks and improvements and all of that? When can we expect that?
Right. So one of the things is that you don't willingly change your criteria every year. We have established that, and the last time I think we had significant changes to the criteria would have been when we did the introduction of iconic lifetime achievement, youth awards, and that set of things. The time before that would have been, I think, when they removed the Paralympians from competing with the non-Paralympian type athletes. So I don't think that the criteria have changed substantially over the years and frequently over the years. We have said that for many reasons, we intend to review and make adjustments where we find feasible in 2025, which is the 65th staging of the awards. So that's when we are looking at, do we put a team award in? Do we introduce a Hall of Fame component? What would be the criteria for those? Are there other things that we should add? Is there anything that we should take out? Is there anything with the criteria that we should adjust?
Okay.
Mr. Gary Allen, thank you very much for joining us on the SportsMax Zone. It was a pleasure, and we wish you all the best with the award ceremony come January 2025.
All right, thank you very much for having me.
All right, Gary Allen, chairman of the RJR Gleaner Sports Foundation, the organizers of the National Sportsman and Sportswoman of the Year Awards. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more on the SportsMax Zone.